Hi guys, welcome to Digital Tech Join. I hope everybody is doing good. So this is the part 3 of consuming Web API in ASP.NET MVC application. Now anybody who is new to this video, please note that I have already released 2 videos in my channel. First is how to create a Web API in 60 minutes, where I explain the step-by-step procedure on creating a Web API, and it from the scratch I show it, and it is a detailed video which got a lot of love from you guys, and thank you so much. Then after that, recently I released one more video where I showed how to consume that Web API created in video 1 in ASP.NET MVC application, and also not only consume but also created a small crude application. Through consuming the Web API, I created a small application for student database where I was able to create, update, and read and delete records. Now in this video, consuming ASP.NET application, Web API and ASP.NET application, I had simply used the controller class and call and written all the codes to perform the entire code operation. Now in this third video, that is part 3, I'm going to show you some of the best standards that you need to use to consume the Web API. Okay, because you can't for every API you can't write the code and duplicate the code in your controller class. So maybe you have hundreds of controllers, and you can't keep repeating the same set of code on each controller. Instead, we are going to create a common routine, and then you can use the same approach and try to create a common routine and consume those APIs over there and simply call that into your controller class. Now before we proceed, I'll just run through the project. So this was a project, a demo API. That was the first video that I created, and I created a Web API for managing and the students database. Then this is a second project called the school management, where I actually consumed it. Now in this, if you go to the controller and you see the student controller, I have referred the URL over here, that web API URL, and then you can see I have actually written all the codes over here, creating a student, displaying a student. So you see this all code repeat is over there, and then in your index that where I'm listing all the students. So before I start, let's run this project and just recap once. So yeah, so here we have our project, and here we have a Web API project. This is the student API, where we have get, post, and get student by ID, and then update student details, and then delete student details. For now, I'll just click on get student information, and I'll actually show you the output of this API. Here you can see the 3 records over here. Okay, similarly we can also add it from our Web API. Now we go to the project. This is a project. Now I click on students, and you can see all this record that is displayed over here is also displayed over here. Through the Web API, I actually fetched this record, and that is what you can see. Now let's add one record over here. So let me add one more record and say Robert age 15 and 10 standard, and this is robert@yahoo.com. okay, so I click on submit, and here you can see it's added, and here I can also edit, and I can also delete this record, and the same can be seen over here. If I click on refresh it, you can see the Robert record over here. Now this everything works fine. Now only thing is that we need to go ahead and now just update our student controller class and create a common service that we can do all this needful without messing the controller class. Okay, so let's get started. So what we're going to do is that in your school management project, right click, create a folder called services. Now here I'm going to create a class, and then write as API service, and then write routine which can be plugged to the student controller. Right click on the services folder, add a class called API service. API service. So this is my class. Now in this class I'm going to use a routine. So first thing I'm going to do is that create an HttpClient object that will perform all the calling of services. So read only, private read only, and this is my HTTP client, and let me just HTTP client. I like to call it as HTTP client. So this is my first variable I declare. Then I also want to call the web URL. So in this case, string, and this will be my API URL path. And I already mentioned that URL path in my controller. And if you go to the top, here you can see this is a URL. I'll just go over here and you can paste it. So this is my URL. So if you go to your API demo also, and if you go to property launch setting, here you can see the URL is right over here as well. Also, when you run the project, you can see that URL in your browser. This is the URL. So this is the first two declaration I do. I'll add the necessary class. Second I'm going to do is that call the constructor, create a constructor CTOR tab, and here's my constructor ready. Now here in the constructor, I'm going to copy, basically write the code that I had written in my controller for each and every method. So first thing here I'm going to do is that I'm going to say underscore HTTP client as new client, and then underscore HTTP client dot base your address is equals to new URI, and here I'm going to pass the API path. Then I'm going to say HTTP client dot default request header accept dot clear, then HTTP client dot default request header, here this one, and this one request dot accept default request header dot accept dot add new, enter. So this is new HTTP. This is not required because I have not referred that, so I'm going to refer that over here library so that your code is shorter. Use system.net.http.headers. So now I'm going to remove this. It's new media type quality header value, and that will be my application/JSON. So once this is done, my common routine for calling the API and setting the headers is done. So in case of controller, I had to write this code each and every time in each and every operation that I perform. Let's go to the controller and just show it to you once so that you understand how the code is getting duplicated. So here's the client I'm creating, passing the header for creation, here for fetching, and then for creation, then for details. So this is what I did in my last tutorial for everyone to actually understand the concept, and I thought that okay, I'll create a separate video where I showed you how to minimize and create a standard code. So this was the first line of code I've written, and also I'm going to add the JSON object reference, that is using Newton.json. So if it is not installed, you can go to the NuGet package manager and install Newton soft.json. Okay, so once this is done, I'm going to now proceed with my second line of code. Now here first code I'm going to do is that get all the students. So I'm going to write public async task list, and here I'm going to call the student entity, and this is get all students. This is my first method. Here what I'm going to do is that create HTTP response message, and this is my response, and this will be await my client dot get async, and here I'm going to pass API/connection. customers, no, not customers, students. So this is the way I actually students. So here you will get little confused because you have not watched the previous video if you are watching this video for the first time. So I'm calling the web method for fetching the, if you go to students class, here you can see my base URL is /API students. In fact, I'll just, I want to just make sure that you understand this. I'm just going to comment everything right, and I'm going to call the project. I'm going to run the project and show you. Here, so you can see my web methods. Here you can see the web API. This one. Now you can see get is /API students. The base URL is this /API students for posting, for getting student details by ID. So that is how I have written /API to student. And if you go to your controller, if you go to your API controller and go to your students, here you can see the route is API/controller. That is why I am referring that over in my service as well. So that is why I want to get your base understanding clear. So still I'm referring, if anybody is feeling confused, please go and watch the previous two videos. So once that I created, I just say response.ensure success code. Then I'm going to fetch all the content. So I'm going to create contents, and then I'm going to await response of content, read as string. Okay, and then I'm going to declare one more variable, API response. Okay, and this will convert JSON convert. Yeah, this one, JSON convert dot deserialize object, and here I'm going to pass the list. So this is list, student entity, and the contents. This is a code. So we deserializing the list object, and then finally we are going to return the API response. So this is my first code to fetch the record. Okay, in a simple few lines of code. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to replace this with a controller right now and see how things happen. So go to your students, and here you can see that I don't need I don't need this URL, but I will still have to keep it, because if I remove this, then my other codes will stop working. So what I'm going to do is that update this controller class and refer this over there. So what I'm going to do is create a private variable. I say private read only, and I'm going to say API service. This is a service class that I created, and underscore. So this is an object. Now what I'm going to do is that in my constructor, so I don't have a constructor over here, so I'm going to create one for my controller, CTOR tab, and here I'm going to say API service as new API service. I'll instantiate the object here in my default constructor. Now I will go to my list method. Okay, and I'm going to just declare this variable because I need to return the records over here, and I'm going to comment all of this piece of code, and I'm just going to say return. So sorry, I'm going to call this over here list objects, list students, and I'm going to say await API service get student, and I'm going to return this students, which I'm already doing over here. Just copy this, cut it, and paste it over here. That's it. So now let me put a breakpoint and see whether I'm able to fetch this record. So this is my project. I click on students. I've got to the index page. I'll press F11. Let me go inside the code. I'm going to press F11. Here is a method called. Now here this is going to call this API. Response is success. You can see. Okay, here you can see the response is success. Status code 200, and then I'm going to fetch all the content. I've fetched all the content over here. You can see the text object over here. This is a object that I've written, and then I'm going to serialize it and I convert that into list format. Here you can see it is in list format now. We have 4 records and return it back to the calling method, and I'm just going to run this, and now you can see the entire code is displayed. So this all code is deleted now. Now let us do the same thing for adding a record. I hope you guys have understood this. So see, this is the code, and here you also gain abstraction. Here you can see I'm calling a service, and then the service is calling a method, which URL what, because this will also eventually get commented. So this is how some of the best practices that you need to follow. Okay, so now let's proceed with the create. So now we have to eradicate this code. For that, let's go to our API service and now create a method for creating new students. Okay, so now for adding new students, I'm going to create one more method. I'm going to say public async task add student. Okay, and this will have a student as an entity object as a parameter. Now here I'm going to say http response response message. Here this is response goes to await underscore HttpClient dot. So I'm going to say dot put as JSON async and pass the customer entity, student entity. Okay, and then here I'm going to say $, and call the API slash student slash add student. Okay, and then comma, and this will be my customer entity, student entity that I'm passing in the method student. This is a student that I'm passing over here. Response dot in shortcut. This is the code that I need to write. Now there are a couple of why put async and async because the method is async, but why put, why not post, and then this is add student. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just simply run the project again just to explain you that. So this is a web API project Swagger, and here you can see there is the method that I have created, API students. Okay, and so there here if you see I just say add student. So this is the API students, and now the add student is a method in my API. So let me go and just, while the project is running, go to demo API student, and here you can see get it, and now this is student by details, and here you can see add student. So this is the method name, and this is post. So I'm usually using that over here. I'll put a breakpoint also. So this is API students add student method and passing the entity having the values. Now in order to make this work, let's go to the student controller and update this code over here. So this is a method create student. So what we are going to do is that we are going to comment this first. Okay, and here I'm going to say await API service dot add student and pass the entity, and once you add it, I'm going to read it. So I've done this over here. I'm just going to copy, return redirect to index. So once the student is added, we redirect back to the student. Let me put a breakpoint here as well and now start the project. Yeah, so here is the student, we fetch the record. Now I click on add button. I'm going to add some records. Okay, and this is so I added this record. I click on submit. Now I'm going to press F11. It's going to go to this code, and then I'm going to call this. So this says this entity has all the values, and I'm going to post this record to the students add student method. So once that go, let me go and check whether the response is okay. So here you can see there is an error, not found. So we need to check what is the issue over here. Let me go to the Swagger, and this is students. Okay, API students and API students. Then go to the students controller, add student. Let me just check what is the problem. It's good that we have this problem so that we can troubleshoot it. And go to the API service again and see what is the API students, which is right. API okay, API students / add student. I'll just copy this. Go to this student controller, and here you can see add student, which is right, and post. So guys, I'll just what we are doing is post async. So I am going to that demo API student, and here you can see for adding a student I had mentioned HTTP post. So we'll change the code, plus what we're going to do is that we are also going to label this. So HTTP post, and I'm going to say add student, which is the name of this method. Okay, so I'm going to just make sure that it is a post, and then I'm going to say even as student. So now I come back to my API service, and instead of, so already I had actually changed it from put, it was initially put async, and made it to post. So I realized that. So now let's put a breakpoint over here, and let us call the same routine. So we click on students now, and I'm going to say add a student, and this will be is 10, and this is, so let's click on submit, and here you can see F10. I'm calling this service now. So now let us see the response. Yes, now the responses come as okay. So two changes in my control in my API. I went and labeled it as post, and labeled that method as add student, and here instead of put I used post because you're posting the data. And here you can see it successfully called the code, single line of code, and it has also added it. Now let us quickly make changes for the other method as well. So now you can see in my controller, student controller, I'm going to now delete this method remaining extra code over there. So now it is a simple 2-liner of code for creating a student. Now I can see the code in the controller is reducing because we are creating a routine. Now let's go ahead and add the code to fetch the details. So here also let me first go ahead and check what is the label for get details. Here you can see it's HTTP get, and it's get student by ID. So let's go to our API service and write the routine over here to fetch the record for a single record. So let's say public, we will write a method. Okay, so public async task customer entity student entity, and this will be get student details by ID, and we have to pass ID. So here it is going to be HTTP response message, response equals to await HTTP client underscore HTTP client dot get async and this will be my $, and then I'm calling API slash students slash get student details by ID question mark, and I'm going to pass ID over here, and this will be my ID. Close the door. This is yes, this is my ID. I'll just ensure that the method in my API controller is get student by ID. Yes, I'll still copy it, come over here and just paste that over here because I don't want any typo error. Okay, so get student by ID. Okay, and after that, once I do that, I'm going to say response.ensure success code and where contents. So this will be my same code over here with a slight change. Just copy that over here. So I'm reading the entire content and JSON.deserialize object. Now instead of list, it will be just a student. Okay, and then I pass the response. So I'm going to put a breakpoint over here. Now I'm going to the controller, home controller, and here is my get details by ID. And here I'm going to call student entity details, which is already called, and then I'm going to say student details equals to await underscore API service get students by ID. I'm going to pass the ID and return this details, which is already I'm doing. I'm going to comment this entire code right like that, and I'm going to add a breakpoint over here and run the project. So this will fetch student details by ID. So I'm going to click on student. So here you can see Alex. I'm going to click on view over here, and this method gets called and ID is passed as 1, and then I'm going to say F11. Yes, this method gets called, the ID is passed over here, and I guess the response is 200, which is correct. And then you can see the data is getting deserialized. Here you can see the response as the details of Alex, and I click run, so and you can see the details are displayed. So now this is the third method that I've added over here, which is actually showing you the enhancements that I've done. So you can see I'm going to now delete this code, entire code. So we have completed viewing all the records here, right over here. So we have viewed all the records, just a single line of code. Then we have added with a single line of code, and then we are fetching the details with few lines of code. Now we have update student details and then delete student details. Okay, so let's proceed with that. Let's go to our API service and add the routine to delete and update. So let's first update. So let's go to our API demo, web API, and see what is there for update. Here you can see it's a post method, update student details. Okay, so let's go to the API service and add the routine over there. So here I'm going to create a method, public async task, and this will be my update student. This will have int ID and then student. Okay, and this is a student object. So this is the method. Right here I'm going to call what I'd call for update. I'm just going to copy this line of code for adding student, and I'm going to paste that over here. Here instead of add students, it will be update. So I'll go to my student controller web API, copy this update student details, come back to my web API, sorry, API service, paste it over here, and I'm going to pass the ID, and this is my ID over here. And plus I'm going to pass the object having other information. So this is also a post, okay, and I'm going to put a breakpoint over here, go to my student controller, and here you can see the update method. I'm going to use similar to, I'm going to use the same create student, and I'm going to just comment this line first. And here instead of add, I'm going to say update student, and I'm going to pass the ID as well, because for add you don't have to, the student entity, and then redirect. Let me put a breakpoint and run the project. Click on students, and here I'm going to delete this Rosie record. So no, this is an update, sorry. So I'm going to click on this option, and instead of 16 I'm going to say 14, and then I'm going to say 9th standard. Okay, and rest of them is same. I click on submit. Now here you can see the method is called in the API service. It has the ID and then the details which are shared, updated. I'm going to click on F10. So here you can see the URL is having update student is called in the API service, and the response is okay, that means updated. I'm going to run the project now, and here you can see the records are updated. Here you can see Rosie 14/9. Okay, so it got successfully updated. So let's close this, and let's go to our student controller and delete this record. So we have now enhanced the update code as well. Now we have the delete. Okay, so we are going to delete this. So in the delete, first what we are going to do is that we actually call the method to fetch the record. Here you can see the first method we call is to fetch the record, and then once we fetch the record we display that, and then so here we'll have to make some changes over here. So delete first calls the delete method. So I'm going to simply say just comment this. In fact, I'll remove this, and I'll go to fetch details by ID. Here you can see, so here you can see the details API. So I'm going to just simply call this and call this method. Go to delete ID, okay, and paste that. So this is the method that I called first to run this project. So whenever you click on delete, first the details are displayed. That's the reason I'm calling that over here. So I click on student. Now if I click on delete, it will first show me the record. So that is why we fetch, and here you can see the records are displayed. Now it is read only, and now we are going to write the code to actually delete it. So we have actually also updated this record in the student controller. Now even this record is now deleted. Okay, so now let's go ahead and update this piece of code. Let's go to our API service and add a method to delete the record. Public async task delete student details, and I'm going to pass ID. During this tutorial I have used customer a lot of times while I'm actually working on the student entity, because just before this video I actually created one more demo application where I used customer as an entity. So that is the only reason. So here what I'm going to do is fetch and fetch the data. So what I'm going to delete the record, right? So okay, so what I'm going to do is go to this method, add method, copy this post, come over here, and instead of customer add, I'm going to say delete and pass the ID. And I don't need this entity. Okay, so there is an error. Response client post async student entity. So we don't need this. There's no convert. So this is just a post dot post async. Let me just first go and see what is the method I've written over there in the demo API. Demo API and student. Let me see what is the delete. So it's a put delete. Okay, delete student. So I'm going to go to API and I will say put JSON, and this is delete student. Okay, JSON and ID, comma, and no entities are passing null. Put async. Okay, fine. Put async. So now, and I just copy this response.code. I'll put a breakpoint and I'll go to the student controller now. Student controller, and here's the delete code. So I'll just enhance this delete code over here. So what I'm going to do is simply say await underscore API service dot delete student, pass the ID, and then return to this one, the index page. I'm going to comment this line of code. Okay, so API service dot delete. So what is the problem? Why I could not find the missing API service delete student details. Okay, sorry, it's delete student details, not by the method was wrong. I'm confidently going to remove this code now since we have written so many methods. So this is the code. I'm put a breakpoint and run the project now. Click on students, and here I'm going to delete Rosie. Click on that, it is displaying. Now click on delete button. So this method is getting called. I'll press F11 and the ID is 8. Now this is a URL put, because I've defined put in the web API, and I'm passing the ID, and it is supposed to be, yes, the response is 204. Okay, and let me just, you can see that Rosie is deleted from this record, from this data set. So guys, with this I complete my tutorial, third part of the tutorial, where actually if you can see the controller, the previous control. Now here you can see, now you don't need this because I simply remove this, because now the base URL is there in this class, API service class. I have encapsulated all the functionality, and this is now in a mode of basically all the code is written in the services. Now here you can use the same service and extend it and make it a generic service, so that all your API calls can be done from this API service. Okay, now you can see, now I'm just calling what is I require. So here I require to fetch the data. I'll just call the get student, similarly add student, get student by ID, update student, and finally delete student. So all the core logic is written over here. And in fact here also you can see only one time we are initiating the HTTP client and setting the headers, and then we simply call the URL, and this URLs can also be part of your JSON, and you can also further encrypt it and then call it over here. Even that can be done. So this is a proper way of creating a common class for consuming your web API. Now what is next? Now in my fourth part I'm going to actually add security over here in my demo API, and I'm going to add JWT token Okay, and then first I'll show you how to create JWT token in your web API, then to secure your web API, then I'll show you how to consume the service by passing the proper token ID, so that whenever you create any operation to call the API from your school management to the web API, it authenticates your request, and then only it gives the services and provides you the proper response. So guys, with this we complete the tutorial part 3 of web API. I hope you like the video. Please do subscribe, share my channel link with all your family members, friends and colleagues, and please do help me to grow my digital tech joint channel so that it reaches to more of my developer communities. Thank you so much for your time.